All right, so I wanted to talk a little bit about this document, the Mayan creation idea. I hesitate to say myth because it's when you're talking about somebody's religion, myth doesn't make it sound nice. To me, it's very interesting. You get Tepu the Maker and Gukumat's the feathered serpent together. You get two feathered beings. And folks, the feathered serpent is a huge thing by a variety of names um, for Native Americans in Central and South America. You're going to find that the feathered serpent appears in several different areas, and the idea that they're brilliant and blue and green feathers, and they come together and they're going to just meet and decide that they need to create something, that they need to get together, and they think. And to me, there are echoes of Old Testament here. Okay, there are echoes, of the Christian creation story as well. When it comes to that, because they're going to think Earth, and Earth forms in the darkness, and almost exactly, and so what you have to realize is that a lot of these stories are oral tradition, and they're not going to get written down because although the Mayans do indeed have a written form of language, it's not this written form of language, and it doesn't come around until much later. And it's not until after we get the Spanish, we get the conquistadors, into Central and South America, into North America, and you have the members of the church, you have the padres, you have the Franciscans, you have the other folks that are coming in, and they're teaching, and you get one or two that are going to sit down and not just teach but be willing to learn, and they want to learn the stories, and they want to learn the creation myths. They want to learn about their gods and goddesses and traditions. And so what's happened is one of them has taken the stories and composed them into a set of myths and ideas. And you have to realize that there's going to be some Christian influence on the way these stories are put down and composed and put together. But I think it's pretty interesting because it talks about, okay, well, gosh, the gods got together. There's more than one, but between the two of them, they create everything. And they create with a specific reason. And what I find is interesting is they create the earth, and this we got to have somebody to enjoy this, and so they create the animals, and they're disappointed in the animals because the animals can't appreciate the gift, they can't voice their appreciation of the gift, they can't praise the gods. It's like, oh man, okay, we got to make something else, and so they decide to make mankind. And the problem is they're going to make a few different versions of mankind because man is imperfect. They want him to be able to appreciate. They want him to be able to express that appreciation. So not just be able to think, but be able to vocalize, but be able to vocalize in an impassioned manner so it's got meaning. And so it goes through the different stages. And what astounds some people is these gods make mistakes. Okay, they make mistakes in composition, they make mistakes in creation, and it's not until they get to that last version of mankind, that is indeed created from the maize, created from the corn, which is kind of interesting as well, that they arrive at that perfect version of man. And it's interesting because that perfect version of man is indeed perfect. He's indeed perfect. He is everything he's intended to be and more. And I find it interesting because the gods talk to him and say, hey, just a quick test here, pop quiz, what do you see? Because it's what they've asked the animals, it's what they asked the mud man, it's what they asked the wooden man. And none of those could pass the test. And strangely enough, this one doesn't either. Because the question is, what do you see? And he says, wow, I see everything. I see everything that you've created and its loveliness and its beauty. And I see you in all your glory. And I see your intent behind creating all this. And it's interesting because the gods go, oh, wait, you are too perfect. You don't need to see what we intend. You don't need to see what we're thinking. You don't need to see the big picture because that's a problem. And so they just kind of reach in and go, tweak. Let's turn down the setting just a little bit. Let's make him a little bit less perfect. And so they intentionally make him an imperfect man. And then they make more of the imperfect man because that's what they want. Is they want a man that's capable of expressing things, a man that's capable of thinking, a man that's capable of worship of them in a proper way, but not too capable, if you know what I mean. And it's an interesting story when it comes to creation mythos about creation and about learning, because in the fact that they have to keep trying, it's another learning lesson. Okay, it's another learning lesson, and you have to kind of realize that in the idea that he's imperfect by design. You have to realize that in the multiple attempts to get him, that there's a learning lesson that even the gods can teach you or be taught, to the gods themselves. And so it's an interesting thing, because what it does is it outlines the design for these people of what the God's intent for their life. It outlines for them what their, if we were talking India, I'd say Dharma, about what their duties are and what they expect from them. But also it kind of outlines, listen, you ain't the first version of you, and the other ones that didn't work out, well, it didn't end very well for them for the most part. So either you hold up your end of the bargain, or there'll be another rendition of man. And so it's almost a looming thread, very much the way Christians see in the Old Testament. Listen, the next wiping out of mankind won't be through flood, it'll be through fire. And it's that looming thread up there. And they have the same kind of looming thread. And I have to wonder, how much of this is influenced because we learned this story via an interpreter. We learned this story for somebody who's firmly based in Christian religion. And, how much of it is affected how they hear the story, how they write it down, and how it's composed. So, all right, I'll leave this in your capable hands to go ahead and look at the rest of the document.